What the f is this piece of sh?
January isn't really known as a month where good films are released, and well, I'm happy to say this tradition continues with the newly released Night Swim, brought to us by the fine folks at Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, both of which are always the mark of quality. The movie is about a family that moves into a new home that just so happens to have a haunted pool. I generally stay away from newer movies because, let's be honest, there really aren't many decent films released these days, but I figured I would take this opportunity to spoil the hell out of this stinker so no one has to actually sit through it, but also compare it to an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark in a 1v1 winner-take-all to decide which is the better spooky haunted pool story. Night Swim begins with a young girl who gets coaxed by some unknown force into going after a toy boat in her pool, instead of, just waiting until morning for her parents to do it. And what do you think's gonna happen once she tries to fetch said toy? Whatever the hell this thing is, it pulls the girl into the pool and then drowns her. But let's not ignore the spooky figure on the diving board. Also, where did the girl's body go? I sure hope it isn't something cliche that we've seen done much better in a million other movies. We're then introduced to the Waller family, Ray played by Wyatt Russell, his wife played by Carrie Condon, and their children Izzy and Elliot. Ray was once a big name in the MLB, but lost his career due to an ongoing battle with MS. The family is looking for a new home, something to make travel for Ray a bit easier while he tries to deal with his situation. And it looks like they may have found the perfect place. It's pretty cheap and it has a pool, something Ray has always wanted. I just hope it doesn't have a spooky curse of some kind. After a near drowning because Ray fell in trying to recover a disgusting baseball that was just suddenly in the pool, maybe they should take that as a sign not to buy the house? Ray has a checkup with the doctor who tells him he should find some low-intensity exercises he can do, like swimming for instance. With this in mind, they immediately buy the completely normal and definitely not haunted pool home. So far, the most unrealistic thing in the movie is the family helping each other clean out the pool. Ray gets a cut while his hand is jammed in the filter, and the pool starts to look like me after Mexican night. Turns out the pool just so happened to be tapped into a spring well, so all the water will be as fresh can be, and definitely not haunted. That night, Eve is taking a nice night swim when she sees Ray looking all spooky, except Ray's not actually there. This was pretty much all she needed to leave the damn pool and find her husband who's just chilling in bed. The toy boat from the beginning of the film magically returns, and the family cat doesn't seem to be too fond of it. And it's understandable why he wouldn't be, because he's now missing. Ray checks on his cut and notices it's suddenly perfectly healed. To make sure their cat doesn't fall in when they find him, they decide to cover the pool, which I'm sure won't come into play later. That night, Eve notices something really strange when she finds Ray swimming the pool like he's Michael Phelps, when just earlier he could barely walk in it. Ray seems to be improving by leaps and bounds, and no one has any idea how or why. His son Elliot goes for a dip when someone or something begins tossing coins into the pool for him to dive for. That's when the young boy starts hearing a strange voice calling for him.
Can you hear me?
The voice says its name is Rebecca Summers and it found his toy. But ladies, you really need to clean the drain when you're done shaving. A spooky hand grabs Elliot and he rushes back to his mother for help. But when she heads outside, there's no one there. Later on, they head to Elliot's baseball practice, and you can tell this isn't a 90s movie because the father is actually there. This has to be really hard for Elliot because his father is a pro, so there's obviously going to be expectations. Ray is then asked if he wants to take a few swings for the kids to see, and after a few failed attempts, and with the power of a spooky haunted pool behind him, he smashes one out of the park. It's hilarious though because everyone is excited except for his family, who all seem to be upset that he's improving. I guess they all just wanted Dad to get worse. Eve did say earlier she was tired of moving all the time because he would get traded from team to team, so maybe she really doesn't want him getting better. That night, the parents decide to go out, leaving the oldest daughter, Izzy, in charge. And what does she do the moment they leave? Invite a boy over for a swim, of course. Obviously, this all leads to some ghostly shenanigans. Izzy swims underwater to find her friend, and the pool is suddenly infinitely deep. The bottom is just suddenly gone, and normally infinitely deep and dark water would be one of my ultimate fears, but in this movie I'm just struggling to stay awake because it's so boring. One of the Scolari brothers grabs her leg, and the young girl finally decides it's time to swim to the surface. The following day, the family hold a pool party for their friends and co-workers, and little Elliot decides to record the event like a little creeper. Although whoever is in charge of shots like these should probably be put on a list. While everyone else is having a great time, Eve learns from their realtor that this house holds a teeny tiny little secret. Back in 1992, a little girl named Rebecca drowned. Meanwhile, Ray has a kid from his son's team on his shoulders and starts to become possessed by the pool. So naturally, this means he has to now try and drown the boy. Luckily, Elliot is recording the whole thing because no one else seems to notice the drowning going on right around them. The boy and Ray are pulled out, but I doubt they'll be receiving any thank you letters for hosting the party. Eve is starting to suspect that maybe something is going on with their new pool, so it's time to get the hell out. Except the pool isn't about to let anyone leave just yet, and Ray starts convulsing until he's brought back inside the house. Eve starts looking into the house's history and notices many people that have lived there have just up and vanished over the years. So she decides to speak to the family of the young girl, Rebecca Summers, that drowned some 30 years prior. And this is where she learns of the pool's terrifying history. Basically, it's a haunted spring called the Temagami. It grants wishes like the monkey's paw, where one gets a wish they want granted, but someone else is required as a sacrifice. Like, say, a kitty cat so Ray can swim faster. The old woman sacrificed her daughter so her young sick son could get better, winning her Mother of the Year in the process. Ray at this point is just full on possessed. Some very scary things start to happen, like this glass of water moving all by itself. Elliot goes outside because he hears his cat, but it's not his cat, it's a spooky ghost. The ghost places the cover over the pool, so Eve jumps in after her son. And now we are in full poltergeist mode, because Eve straps a hose around her waist so she can swim down into the pool's ghost dimension so she can find her son. And no, I'm not making any of this up. Meanwhile, Izzy has to deal with her father, who can now apparently teleport. Eve reaches the end of her hose, so she uses it to get another breath of air before descending even further into the ghost dimension, or whatever the hell it is. She finds her son, and luckily for the both of them, the ghost of Rebecca comes and shows Eve the correct way to swim out. Look, I've done a lot of swimming in my time, and I cannot see shit underwater, especially not in a chlorinated, dark, ghost dimension. Eve tries giving her son CPR when Ray comes and suddenly has the strength of Hercules. But Izzy steps in and takes Ray out with one of his baseball bats. And then suddenly, Ray is just able to spit up the possession, and Elliot comes too. They're not out of the woods just yet though, because now Elliot is becoming possessed. And that's when Ray comes up with the bright idea of sacrificing himself to save his son. Yeah, he just swims into a murky ghost dimension, and all is well, I guess. The family fills the pool with dirt and decides not to move because that's what Dad would want. But is no one going to ask where he went? There's no body, no sign of him whatsoever. You're telling me the authorities aren't asking questions? And well, that's Night Swim, a pretty crappy modern horror flick, but is it better or worse than a 1995 episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Tale of the Dead Man's Float begins in 1954 as a young boy named Joe prepares to take a swim in the school's pool. He asks the lifeguard Charlie if the pool is safe, to which Charlie says sure. But that's only because he's more interested in making out with Joe's sister, Cindy. The young boy suddenly smells something disgusting and is pulled under the water. Joe calls for Charlie, but by the time he gets to him, it's already too late. I now finally understand why Mrs. Voorhees went after those camp counselors so hard.
Did you know that a young boy drowned the year before those two others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned.
40 years later, and Zeke, who's either showing off a science project or competing in a Macaulay Culkin lookalike contest, surprisingly draws the interest of one of his classmates. Two young ladies go over to ask him what happened. Well, one does. The other gets dragged over because he's kind of a dork. I don't know what happened exactly, some think about Magonite and water go kaboom, but Zeke does seem interested in one of the ladies, just not the one that's into him. While he tries to make some moves, the janitor named Charlie comes in to clean up his mess. Now Charlie, nah, it couldn't be.
Actually, schoolwork wasn't the only thing on Zeke's mind.
You don't say. Zeke offers to show her something secret after school, which she immediately laughs at because she has swim practice, but surprisingly agrees to join him the following day after school. The next day, he takes her into the boys' change room, a place she seems all too familiar with.
If this is your big surprise, I've seen it already.
But the boys' change room isn't the surprise, it's the hidden pool behind the lockers, a massive and abandoned pool. Clarice thinks she can get the pool reopened, but if she does, doesn't that mean people are just going to be walking in and out of the boys' change room? As they leave, however, Charlie the janitor is there watching the pool, and what the hell is that? The pool is reopened in only a matter of a few weeks, but there's definitely something strange about it.
Oh man, what's that smell?
The two girls notice the same foul smell that Joe did, but get out before whatever took Joe takes them. The following day, Clarice is complaining that she got a C in science. This of course brings our boy Zeke into the picture because he can help her study and nothing more. Also, her friend Greta looks kind of pissed because she was the one who had a thing for him. The two teens sneak into the pool late night so Clarice can teach Zeke to swim. Also, is her name Clarice supposed to be a play on chlorine because chlorine goes in pools and she's part of the swim team? Clarice takes him out in a little inflatable raft and Zeke is just terrified. He tells her a harrowing story of survival when one time out in a pond, a weed touched his foot and he thought he would die. Alright, his foot was caught in the weed, but still. Clarice simply ignores his story and hops in the water.
Now try.
Clarice! Clarice!
That damn Greta played a little joke on them because she's all butthurt Zeke chose Clarice and not her.
He's helping me with chemistry. Yeah, right.
Ladies, there's enough Zeke to go around. Zeke puts his hand in the water and notices that same weird smell, almost acidic smelling, and that's when something pulls him in. There's definitely something in the water, and it isn't Greta this time. The kids are both thrown in the water but are pulled to safety by the janitor just in time. This is when the kids learn the horrifying reason why the pool was shut down. The janitor is the same Charlie who watched his girlfriend's brother drown. I didn't see that one coming. I thought the janitor being named Charlie was simply a coincidence.
When they built the pool, they had to get rid of an old cemetery and move the bodies. Nearest I can figure is they missed one.
That's right, the pool was built over an old cemetery, and when they moved all the bodies, they forgot one, and now it's back for revenge. But old Zeke boy thinks he knows how they can fight this thing. He thinks because it's acidic smelling, that maybe a little methyl orange will make it visible. And me having failed chemistry, I have no idea what he's talking about. Clarice also grabs a little bit of that magnite stuff that made the water explode from earlier. Zeke pours a little methyl orange in the water, and presto, monster. But what the f*** is that? This is a kid's show, correct? Zeke takes a swing at it, but he goes right through it because apparently it's made of water, even though he was saying it smelled like acid. So which is it, Zeke? Charlie goes comatose for some reason when the monster bubbles up through the drain. Clarice comes up with the brilliant plan of using the magnite on the monster, but dummy Zeke knocks it into the water. Luckily, Clarice is on the swim team though, so she can dive in after it. Zeke decides to jump in the water to distract the monster, while Clarice gets to dry land in an attempt to open up the magnite. Clarice tosses the chemical at the monster, and just like that, it's gone. And now that Charlie can finally be at rest knowing the monster is dead, maybe he can do something with that haircut. Alright, there we have two haunted pool tales. Now which one is better? It's really hard to have equal expectations from both, as one is a big budget Hollywood movie, well it's actually a fairly small budget Hollywood movie, but compared to a small 90s Canadian children's show, it's massive. If you look at the acting, sure, Night Swim has better acting, but it should have better acting. You've got seasoned actors, including the son of Kurt Russell, so if it doesn't have better acting, then you're doing something really wrong. But the acting in Are You Afraid of the Dark is fine for what it is. It's teens in a small little horror show from the mid-90s. You really can't fault it for that, but for those reasons, I really can't say one is better than the other. The special effects, I will say, are better in Are You Afraid of the Dark. I know people are going to disagree, but there really isn't much in Night Swim, and what the film does have is all CGI and really quick shots. Meanwhile, Are You Afraid of the Dark has a full-on monster, a classic man in a costume, and it looks far better than something that is made for a kid's show should look. They really didn't try and water things down, pun intended. Just because it's a kid's show, they really wanted to make the monster stand out and be scary. Quick flashes of CGI monsters aren't scary in the slightest. How about the story? Both stories are pretty generic. You've seen haunted house movies or possession movies a million times, but Night Swim does everything so boring. At least Are You Afraid of the Dark is a quick 22 minutes, with the main story being even shorter once you cut off the beginning and end segments. Night Swim, on the other hand, just drags everything out. It's not even a very long movie by today's standards, but because almost nothing happens for the entire runtime, it feels twice as long. Also, I'm getting a little tired of the dad becomes possessed shtick. It's been played to death. And yeah, bodies not being moved from a cemetery has also been done to death. But Are You Afraid of the Dark are only supposed to be quick in and out stories that need to be simple enough for young kids to easily understand. I feel really bad for Wyatt Russell. I think he's a decent actor, he just doesn't have a filmmaker like John Carpenter that he can work with. His father really lucked out in that regard. Watching both of these back to back, it's really easy to just see how much better Are You Afraid of the Dark is. I mean, it's not even close. Blumhouse isn't really known for putting out decent films, and this is just another in a long line of crap that they've released over the years. So if you're really in the mood for a haunted pool story, because why wouldn't you be, then just skip Night Swim and watch The Tale of the Dead Man's Float. It's cheesy and loaded with 90s nostalgia, but it's pretty damn fun, and the monster just looks awesome. Anyways, that's all for today. Let me know down in the comments which one you would watch or prefer. Thanks so much for watching, I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next video.